The sun had barely risen when Karen's shrill voice carried across the still water of my private lake. She was in full command of her lungs, shrieking at my family and friends who were setting up their fishing gear near the dock. Her accusations of trespassing cut through the morning calm like a rusty saw. What she didn't realize, and what would soon make her regret every single word, is that she had picked the worst possible battleground. Because while Karen thought she was defending her neighborhood's rights, the truth was far more devastating for her. I owned the entire shoreline of that lake, every inch of it, and this was about to turn into one of the most satisfying property disputes of my life. The setup: I bought my property 3 years ago. Tucked away in a quiet valley, the cabin came with a deed that stretched far beyond the little wooden house and cozy fire pit. The paperwork was clear. My land included the surrounding woods, the dock, and most importantly, the shoreline of the lake itself. Right? In fact, the title outlined in black and white that my ownership extended around the entire perimeter of the water. That meant any path to the lake, any dock, any beach-like edge of it was mine. The previous owners had warned me about some neighborhood troublemakers who didn't respect boundaries, but I figured with polite conversation, any misunderstandings could be settled. I had no idea just how delusional and entitled some people could get. Karen arrives on scene. The first time I met Karen was during a Saturday afternoon barbecue. A few of my friends were fishing from the dock while others lounged in kayaks. Karen stormed out from the cul-de-sac of homes across the road, stomping down the trail in flip-flops, carrying an oversized tote bag and an even bigger attitude. "Excuse me?" she barked, pointing dramatically at my guests. "You all can't just come out here and use the lake like this. It's private property." I smiled politely and tried to explain. "Yes, ma'am. It is private and it's mine. I own this shoreline, including the dock." Her jaw dropped as though I had just spoken another language. "Don't be ridiculous. This lake belongs to the HOA. Residents pay fees for it. You can't just claim it as your own." That was my first taste of Karen's delusions. Believe the HOA her. HOA had jurisdiction over a lake they didn't own. The escalation over the next few weeks. Karen made it her mission to patrol the shoreline. Anytime she saw me or my guests by the water, she marched over with her phone in hand. Recording us like she was a deputized officer, she accused my brother of littering when he dropped a sandwich wrapper. He picked it up immediately. She berated my neighbor for bringing a paddleboard, claiming it damaged the ecosystem. She even screamed at my elderly father, telling him his fishing chair was blocking community access. Finally, she took things too far. The breaking point: one Saturday, I hosted a group of friends from out of town. We were grilling by the dock. Kids were splashing in the water and music floated gently from a Bluetooth speaker. It was the kind of idyllic day I had dreamed about when I bought the cabin. That's when Karen appeared. Her face was red with fury, and she had 2 other HOA members in tow, like backup dancers. "All right, this ends now," she shrieked. "All of you are trespassing. Pack up your things and leave before I call the sheriff. This lake belongs to the neighborhood, not some outsider squatter." I could see the confusion on my guests' faces. They looked at me, unsure whether to laugh or actually start packing. I stood, dusted off my hands, and faced Karen directly. "Karen," I said evenly, "you need to stop. I own the entire shoreline. Can't accuse my guests of trespassing. When they are here at my invitation, I have the deed to prove it." She folded her arms and smirked like she had one. "Oh, sure. Everyone says that until they're slapped with a lawsuit. The HOA is going to deal with you." Bringing out the deed I had prepared for this moment, I motioned for my cousin to grab the folder from inside the cabin. Inside was my property deed, complete with survey maps. I laid it out on the picnic table for everyone to see. "Here," I said, pointing to the lines. "This shows the perimeter of my land. Notice how it wraps around the lake. That means every dock, every trail leading to the water, every spot. You see, here belongs to me. The HOA has 0 jurisdiction." Karen's face twisted into disbelief. "That's fake. No, you can't just print off papers and say you own a lake." But one of the HOA board members leaned closer, reading the official Stamps and signatures. His expression shifted uncomfortably. Karen? This looks legit. Karen shot him a glare that could have melted steel, calling the sheriff true to her word. Karen dialed the sheriff's office anyway, shrieking into the phone about squatters and illegal lake parties. The deputies arrived 20 minutes later. Karen rushed to them like she was about to be crowned queen. "These people are trespassing," she cried, pointing at my guests. "They refused to leave our lake." The deputy calmly listened, then turned to me. "Sir, can you show me your property documents?" I handed him the deed without hesitation. He flipped through it carefully, nodding at the notarized pages and official survey. Then he looked back at Karen. "Ma'am, this land is his. The shoreline is private property belonging to him. It's not the HOA. You and your friends actually have no legal right to be here without his permission." Karen's jaw hit the floor. "That's impossible. We've been using this lake for years," the deputy sighed. "That doesn't change ownership, ma'am. Use doesn't equal rights." The HOA's backlash after that incident, Karen and the HOA doubled down. They started sending me threatening letters claiming I owed back fees for lake maintenance. They tried to fine me for unauthorized use of community amenities. They even accused me of denying residents recreational access. I responded by forwarding everything to my attorney. He drafted a single letter, citing my deed and threatening counterclaims for harassment. The HOA suddenly went quiet, but not Karen. Karen's last stand the next weekend. She returned with reinforcements, about a dozen angry neighbors. They lined up along the path, shouting insults at my guests and waving handmade signs like protesters. "Stop. Stealing our lake? HOA rules apply to everyone. Get out, squatter." I walked calmly to the dock, raised my phone, and started filming. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced, "this is harassment. You are standing on my property, blocking access to my lake after being told repeatedly that this shoreline belongs to me. The sheriff already confirmed it. You are trespassing." A few neighbors immediately backed off, realizing they were in the wrong, but Karen stood firm, shaking with fury. "We're not leaving until you give us access." I smiled. "Great. Then I'll let the sheriff escort you out again. This time, you might get cited for criminal trespass." The sheriffs returned sure enough. When the deputies arrived a second time, they weren't nearly as patient. After reviewing my documents again, they warned the crowd to disperse immediately. Several of Karen's allies muttered apologies and slinked away. Karen, however, was handcuffed and placed in the back of a patrol car after refusing to move. She screamed the whole time, claiming it was all a conspiracy. My guests cheered as she was driven off down the dirt road. The aftermath in the weeks that followed, the HOA went silent. The board stopped sending letters, and several residents actually apologized to me in private. Apparently Karen had been feeding them lies for years, convincing them the HOA owned the lake. When they saw the actual deed, the illusion shattered. Some even asked if they could rent dock space or host events with my permission. I politely declined most requests, but I did allow a few respectful neighbors to fish now and then. Karen, meanwhile, was banned from the HOA board after her arrest for trespassing. Rumor has it she's still ranting online about how I stole her lake. But the reality is simple. She messed with the wrong property owner. Reflection owning land is more than just a piece of paper. It's a responsibility and a right. Karen thought her voice, her entitlement, and her HOA rules outweighed legal ownership. She was wrong. And the best part? Now, every time I sit on my dock with a cold drink in hand, I smile knowing that the entire shoreline is mine. Karen can scream, protest, and throw tantrums all she wants. But at the end of the day, the water reflects only one truth. She lost. Asterisk, this story is just the beginning. There is so much more ahead. Subscribe to the channel to join me on this journey.